Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're really diving into a stack of sources, research papers, articles, notes, all centered around fasting and time-restricted eating.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, and there's a lot out there.
Our mission really is to unpack all this material and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the insights that you can actually use.
And move beyond just the weight loss aspect, right? Because it's so much more.
Exactly. Forget just thinking about weight loss. We're exploring this as like a powerful biological tool. It taps into your body's ancient operating system.
Yeah, impacting things like energy, focus, even cellular repair, metabolic health. The list goes on.
We've got insights here from researchers, doctors, covering the science, the practical stuff, even, how to handle the discomfort.
So let's dive in and get well informed.
Okay, so let's start with that core idea. It seems like it's not just what you eat, but when you eat creates specific conditions in the body.
Absolutely. That's a huge takeaway from the sources. Eating and not eating, they're powerful signals. They're not just about calories in, calories out.
Right.
They tell your body, okay, prioritize growth and storage now, or shift gears, go into repair mode, cleanup mode, enhance function. It's like flipping metabolic switches.
And that connects back to our evolutionary history. Our ancestors weren't hitting the fridge every few hours.
Precisely. Our biology, it's fundamentally adapted for periods without food. Scarcity was the norm, not abundance. So fasting in that light isn't really deprivation. It's more like returning to a state our bodies, understand and actually evolve to thrive in.
Which implies that our modern constant eating pattern might actually be working against our own biology.
That's definitely a theme here. And to really grasp how it works, we need to be clear on the difference between being fed and being fasted. It's not an instant switch.
Right, yeah. You stop eating, but you're not immediately fasting. What's the physiological trigger? How does that work?
Okay, so when you eat, especially carbs, your blood sugar glucose goes up. That triggers insulin release. Insulin helps shuttle that glucose into your cells for energy or, storage.
Right.
In the fasted state, though, blood sugar and insulin levels drop way down. Your body then starts looking for other fuel sources, like stored fat.
And the sources nail down the timing on that transition.
They do. You're generally not considered truly fasted until about, say, 5 to 6 hours after your last bite or your last caloric drink.
5 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it takes that long to digest, process, and for those blood sugar and insulin levels to get back down to a low baseline.
Got it. Okay, so that's the state we're aiming for to unlock some of these benefits we're talking about.
Exactly.
So why would someone put themselves through this? Let's get into the powerful results highlighted in the sources. This is the compelling part.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. It touches on, like you said, energy, brain function, cell health, metabolism, pretty much the whole system. Let's maybe start with energy and mental clarity, because that's something a lot of people report noticing relatively quickly.
Okay, but it feels a bit backward, doesn't it? Wouldn't skipping meals make you feel, tired and foggy?
That's the common thought, yeah. But the sources offer this evolutionary angle. Think about it. When food was scarce, our ancestors needed to be more alert, more energized to actually go find it.
Ah, okay. So there's a built-in drive for focus when you're hungry.
Kind of flips the script, yeah. And this is where ketones come into the picture.
Right, ketones.
Yeah.
The body makes those when glucose isn't around.
Exactly. They're fuel molecules made from fat, typically becoming significant after maybe 16 hours or so of fasting. And the key point from the sources is they're not just fuel. They have these signaling properties, almost acting like hormones, influencing all sorts of processes.
And there was that fascinating sort of side note in one source. Something about tumors.
Yeah, that tumors reportedly can't survive well on ketones because they're so reliant on sugar and also glutamate. It's an interesting angle on metabolic pathways and cell survival.
Beyond ketones, though, there's BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Right, BDNF. Think of it as brain fertilizer, as one source called it.
Brain fertilizer, I like that.
It helps support the health and growth of your brain cells, strengthens the connections, helps grow new neurons.
And when do those brain benefits really kick in?
Well, you get some benefits earlier, but the sources suggest the really significant effects, including that mental clarity people talk about, tend to become more apparent after maybe 24 to 36 hours of fasting.
So the stress of fasting, that sort of hormetic response, isn't bad for the brain. It actually makes it stronger.
That's the idea, yeah. It's a beneficial stressor. It prompts adaptation, makes the brain more resilient, potentially boosting focus and learning.
Okay. Moving from the brain down to the rest of the body. Cellular repair, regeneration, that seems like a huge benefit, especially with longer fasts.
Absolutely. This is where the body's internal maintenance crew really gets to work. Autophagy is the key process here.
Autophagy. That's the cleanup system.
Essentially, yeah. Your body's cellular recycling system, it cleans out old, damaged, or just non-functional proteins and bits of cells. It starts ramping up around 18 hours and gets significantly more active after 24 hours.
So by giving digestion a break, the body can redirect that energy towards cleaning house.
Precisely. The sources talk about this balance between two pathways. mTOR, which gets activated by eating and tells cells to grow, and AMPK, which gets activated by fasting and tells cells, okay, time for repair and maintenance. Fasting basically shifts the balance towards AMPK. You're favoring cleanup over constant building.
And this even connects to stem cells.
It does, yeah, particularly for regenerating immune system cells. The sources point to stem cell activity being maximized during longer fasts, specifically citing like 72 to 120 hours for peak immune cell regeneration.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. It's part of that idea of giving the body physiological rest to allow for really deep healing processes.
Okay, let's switch gears to metabolic health. This feels incredibly relevant today, with insulin resistance, fatty liver disease being so common.
Oh, definitely. This is a critical area where fasting seems to really shine. Blood sugar regulation is huge.
Right.
The sources emphasize that higher resting blood glucose levels are strongly linked to, well, increased mortality risk. Fasting can help regulate blood sugar and, maybe more importantly, improve insulin sensitivity.
And insulin sensitivity is crucial for preventing or even reversing things like type 2 diabetes.
Exactly. And the sources note significant improvements in insulin sensitivity become quite pronounced around, say, 54 hours into a fast. But benefits start earlier, too, presented as a really powerful tool against insulin resistance.
What about the liver specifically? We hear a lot about fatty liver.
Yeah, the liver takes a hit from constant eating.
Yeah.
Always processing food can lead to inflammation, fat buildup, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Time-restricted feeding, or TRF, is specifically shown to boost liver health. It might help prevent or even reverse fatty liver by just giving the organ those regular breaks.
Letting it recover. Makes sense.
Yeah. And interestingly, the sources even mention TRF might increase your stores of brown fat.
Oh, the metabolically active fat.
That's the one. It helps burn calories. So another piece of the metabolic health puzzle.
We mentioned stress tolerance for the brain, but what about overall inflammation in the body?
Ketones are relevant here again. They burn cleaner, producing fewer reactive oxygen species that's like metabolic exhaust that damages cells and causes inflammation.
True.
Fasting also seems to boost your body's own antioxidant defenses. You see increases in levels of things like zinc and uric acid, which act as antioxidants.
So it's building resilience right down the cellular level.
It seems so. It increases the cell's resistance to various kinds of stress, making them, tougher. There's this idea of being steeled against stress. They even mention studies like mice fasted before gamma radiation exposure showed remarkable protection.
Wow. Okay, now the topic most people probably associate with fasting first. Weight and body composition.
Right. And let's be clear, calorie balance is still fundamental for weight loss. You need to expend more energy than you take in. The sources acknowledge that.
Up.
But TRF offers metabolic advantages beyond just cutting calories. There was a key study mentioned with mice. Same total calories, but the mice eating within an 8-hour window didn't gain weight or get metabolic disease like the mice who could eat whenever. The timing alone made a huge difference.
Same food, same calories, totally different outcome, just based on the schedule. That's pretty striking.
It really is. And TRF seems to specifically help with fat loss by influencing the enzymes involved. It ramps up hepatic lipase, which breaks down fat, and dials down CIDEX, which inhibits fat breakdown.
So, like the source said, removing the brake and hitting the accelerator on fat burning.
Exactly. So combining a moderate calorie deficit with TRF looks like a scientifically supported way to really target body fat loss.
It's optimizing the machinery, not just reducing the fuel.
Well put. And then there's the hormonal balance aspect. Beyond insulin, we see big effects on human growth hormone, HGH.
Right. HGH is important for muscle mass, body composition.
Crucial. And HGH levels start rising around 12 hours into a fast and can apparently increase by as much as 500% by the 48-hour mark.
Wow. What about reproductive hormones? Testosterone, estrogen?
Yeah.
Do you do TRF and keep those levels healthy?
Generally, yes. The sources suggest TRF is compatible. However, and this is an important caveat, overly strict fasting, very low calorie approaches, or potentially very short eating windows can negatively impact reproductive hormones. It seems to be related to energy availability signals, particularly leptin. If your body senses too much energy restriction, it can downregulate reproductive functions.
So if optimal hormone levels are a key goal, you need to be mindful not to push the fasting too hard.
Precisely. The intensity and duration matter and need to align with your goals. And just briefly, the sources also touch on potential benefits for gut health, positive effects on the microbiome, maybe helping with IBS or colitis.
That's an incredibly broad range of benefits, touching almost every system. It really drives home that this is way more than just a diet fad.
It's tapping into something fundamental about our biology. Okay, so now let's shift to the practical side. How do you actually do this based on what the sources suggest?
Yeah, where do you start? There seem to be so many ways to fast.
The material covers a few. There's prolonged fasting 24 hours or more. That's mentioned for offering more concentrated benefits, maybe done, quarterly or semi-annually. A 48-hour fast is even floated as a kind of reset.
But the transition into those longer fasts can be pretty uncomfortable.
It can be, yeah, as your body adapts. One tip is eating clean, whole foods for a few days beforehand to minimize detox symptoms or discomfort.
Okay.
And it's strongly, strongly emphasized that prolonged fasting, especially going past 24, maybe 48 hours, should ideally be done with medical supervision.
Right.
And unlike the daily intermittent fasting, with these longer ones, you often do need to consciously push through those initial hunger signals.
But for most people, the focus seems to be on time-restricted feeding, TRF, that daily eating window.
Yes, TRF is where most of the research and practical application lies for ongoing health benefits. And the sources lay out some foundational rules for setting up that window.
What are the non-negotiables?
Rule 1, no food for at least 1 hour after you wake up. Give your system time to fully wake up.
Okay, 1 hour post-waking.
Rule 2, finish all your eating 2 to 3 hours before your planned bedtime.
2 to 3 hours before bed. Why is that one so important?
Because it maximizes the benefits you get from the natural overnight fast during sleep. That's a peak time for cellular repair and other restorative processes. You don't want digestion interfering with that.
Got it. So you build your eating window between those buffers. How long should the window itself be?
The 8-hour eating window is the one with the most scientific backing. It's the most studied and consistently shows significant health benefits.
What about shorter windows, like 6 hours or even OMAD, 1 meal a day?
They exist, and some people do them, but the current data, according to these sources, doesn't show major added health benefits compared to a solid 8 or 9-hour window. And like we mentioned, very short windows might pose hormonal challenges for some people.
Okay, so 8 hours is a good target. Does it matter when those 8 hours fall during the day?
Ideally, yeah. You want the window to align with your most active period, which for most people is daytime. But here's the really critical part emphasized again and again. Consistency in the timing.
Day-to-day consistency. So shifting it wildly on the weekend is a bad idea.
A very bad idea. That weekend drift can effectively counteract the benefits. It's like giving your metabolism jet lag every week.
Dietary jet lag, huh?
Exactly. So the advice is find a window timing that works with your life, your schedule, your social commitments, make it sustainable, but then stick to it as consistently as possible, always respecting that pre-sleep buffer.
Okay, jumping straight into an 8-hour window might feel daunting for some. Any advice on easing into it?
Definitely don't go cold turkey. The recommendation is gradual adaptation. Try shortening your current eating window by, say, an hour each day, or maybe every couple of days. Do this over maybe 3 to 10 days. This gives your hormones, your hunger signals, your whole system time to adjust more smoothly. Less irritability, less intense hunger.
Makes sense. But what about when that hunger or maybe some lightheadedness does hit, especially early on? What can you do?
This is where electrolytes become really important. Sodium, potassium, magnesium.
Minerals.
Yeah, they're crucial for fluid balance, nerve function. A lot of those common fasting side effects, lightheadedness, shakiness, brain fog, are often just due to electrolyte imbalance, especially sodium loss.
So could something as simple as a pinch of salt in water actually help?
Yes, the sources specifically mention that. A small amount of good quality salt, sea salt, Himalayan, even just table salt in water, can help stabilize blood volume and manage those feelings quite effectively.
Good tip. Any caveats?
Well, if you have chronic hypertension, you need to be cautious with sodium intake, obviously. And they also note that caffeine can increase sodium excretion.
Oh, interesting. So coffee drinkers might need a bit more salt.
Potentially. Yeah, something to be mindful of. Lemon or lime juice and water is also mentioned. It might help manage discomfort, possibly by slightly lowering blood glucose.
Is some level of discomfort just normal when you start? Part of adapting?
It often is, yes. Adaptation takes time. Your body is learning a new rhythm. But there's an interesting side benefit mentioned. Fasting might actually speed up neuroadaptation to less palatable, healthier foods,
Meaning,
meaning your taste preferences might shift faster. You might adapt to liking foods with less salt or less fat more quickly than usual, making healthy eating feel more natural over time. Motivation often builds as you start feeling the positive effects, like less pain or more energy.
okay, the million-dollar question. What breaks a fast? Is it black and white?
Definitely not black and white according to these sources. It's very contextual.
Depends on.
Depends on the quantity, the type of food or drink, your own metabolic state at the time, even the time of day relative to your circadian rhythm. A key indicator mentioned is the blood glucose response.
Okay, so give us the general guidelines. What usually does not break a fast?
Water is fine, obviously. Black coffee, black tea, caffeine pills, generally considered okay. Maybe very small amounts of pure fat for certain goals, but that's debatable and depends on why you're fasting.
And what generally does break it?
Pretty much anything that causes a significant rise in blood glucose and insulin.
Yeah.
So soda, juice, pizza, yeah, even a small amount of sugar in your coffee or that half glass of wine after dinner.
What's the verdict on artificial sweeteners?
The data is really mixed. For some people, they might cause a temporary glucose spike. There are questions about long-term gut microbiome impact. Response is very individual. And for some, just the sweet taste might trigger cravings or appetite.
So maybe best to avoid if unsure.
Probably a safe bet, or at least monitor your own reaction. Oh, and brushing your teeth is fine. Just don't swallow the toothpaste.
Good to know. Okay, are there ways to kind of speed up the transition into that fasted state after you've finished eating?
Yeah, a couple of things. A light walk, maybe 20, 30 minutes right after eating, can help speed up gastric emptying and clear glucose from your blood faster.
Okay, post-meal walk.
Also, doing high-intensity exercise, but doing it later in the day, seems to help lower blood glucose more effectively than intense exercise first thing in the morning, which can sometimes temporarily raise it.
Interesting timing effect there. And you mentioned glucose disposal agents before.
Right. Things like berberine, cinnamon, even lemon or lime juice can help shuttle glucose out of the blood. Berberine's effects are sometimes compared to metformin, but you need to be cautious with dosage, especially if you're already fasted. Don't want to push blood sugar too low.
Are there specific groups or goals where fasting, especially the more intense kinds, might not be a good idea?
Absolutely. Prolonged fasting is generally not recommended during pregnancy or breastfeeding. Also not for individuals who are underweight and actively trying to gain weight. If your absolute main goal is maximizing muscle growth, muscle hypertrophy, consistently spreading protein throughout the day might be more optimal than a very tight TRF window.
Right, for bodybuilders maybe.
Potentially. And as we touched on, some individuals, particularly some women, might find stricter TRF negatively impacts their hormones. They might feel better with more frequent, smaller meals. It really requires individual assessment and listening to your body.
And the universal advice. Always talk to your doctor or a healthcare professional before starting any kind of fasting, especially if you have health conditions, take medications, or are considering longer fasts.
Essential, non-negotiable, really. One last practical point. Refeeding after a prolonged fast.
Right. Don't just dive into a pizza.
Exactly. The advice is to ease back in with healthier whole foods. Give your digestive system and metabolism time to adjust gently. Avoid shocking the system with high-carb, processed stuff right away.
Okay. We've covered a massive amount of ground. Before we wrap this deep dive, let's quickly mention some tools or resources that came up in the sources.
Sure. The My Circadian Clock website, linked to Dr. Sachin Panda's work, was mentioned for tracking eating patterns. The Zero app also came up as a popular tool for tracking fasting and eating windows.
And electrolytes were a big theme.
Huge. Ensuring you get enough sodium, potassium, magnesium is key. The sources mention specific supplements like Adaptive Nutrition Keto K1000 as an example, but the principle of getting those minerals is what matters.
Right.
And for people who really want to personalize this and see what's happening in their own bodies, continuous glucose monitors, CGMs, were suggested as a powerful tool for self-experimentation.
Wow. Okay, we have truly taken a deep dive today. We've gone from the evolutionary roots of fasting all the way to the cutting-edge science showing how just shifting when you eat sets these powerful conditions in your body.
Yeah, it's really clear that beyond just calories, fasting, and TRF offer this pathway to tap into deep biological processes, things that can enhance energy, focus, cell repair, metabolic health.
So remembering those foundational rules,
Yeah.
that buffer of an hour after waking, 2 to 3 hours before bed,
Uh-huh. And considering that 8-hour window as a solid, evidence-backed starting point.
and maybe the most critical piece,
Hmm.
consistency in that window's timing, day in, day out.
Absolutely. Manage the initial discomfort with smart strategies like electrolytes. Remember, fasting is a tool.
And understanding how it works, based on all this information, empowers you to use that tool effectively for your own health goals.
So maybe here's a thought to leave everyone with. Considering how dramatically tweaking when you eat can influence your body's core processes, maybe even reshaping your relationship with food, how much of how you feel right now, your energy, your cravings, your mental clarity, could actually be a result of your current eating schedule.
And what new level of control of well-being might you unlock just by consciously shifting that window?